It's 12:47. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. One of the constituencies of business people that appears to have been, if not forgotten, then I think it's fair to say ignored by Rishi Sunak, are the owners, the directors of small to medium-sized enterprises who take their income largely in dividends, which, for the record, doesn't involve any particular tax advantages in the way that many people... Well, it used to do, but many people perhaps think that it still does. But they don't have a premises as such, so that they don't qualify for some of the support and the grants that they would have got if they had, for example, a high street shop instead of an office in the back of the dining room or an office in the at home and vehicles. So we've spoken to quite a few people who found themselves in this situation, some of whom can't go to work at all, some of whom can't furlough, because if they furlough, then technically they wouldn't be allowed to answer the phone in order to drum up some business that might, touch wood, be waiting for them when they can actually get back out on the road again. Gina Broadhurst falls very squarely into that category, and she is one of the founders of the Forgotten Limited campaign, which is seeking to make this case for small businesses. And she joins me on the line now. Gina, can we begin, if you don't mind, by learning a little bit about your business?
Of course we can, James. Hello, firstly.
Hey, so what is it you do? And then we'll move on to how hard you've been hit.
So I run a specialist shutter company with my husband, Simon. And our shutters, funnily enough, come from China. So we've been dealing with the impact of COVID-19 for a little bit longer than some, since probably late February. So when the announcements were made by the Chancellor about the business support packages, we were extremely excited and hopeful. And statements like "we're all in this together" made us extremely, in anticipation of great things to come. But when we looked through those measures, we realised that we were pretty ineligible for most of the support. So our business has 2 further employees, and we are grateful that the job retention scheme is applicable to them. So
you furloughed the staff members, but where does that leave you and your husband as sort of owner-directors of a small company?
On a bit of a sticky wicket, if I'm honest.
Go on.
So it's a bit of a quandary, isn't it? What do you do? Do you, option A, furlough yourselves and undertake no work in preparation for the upturn, whilst earning a very small sum and having to keep the business and your household fed and clothed and the business running?
So to be clear, and forgive me because I know you're all over this, but a lot of people listening won't be. So because you take out much of your income via dividend income, you'd only qualify for 80% of what you take out via PAYE, which is a relatively small proportion of your salary. Largely because in the case of SMEs, it depends on how much money you've made that month, how much you can take out at the end of it.
That's absolutely a true summary. Absolutely correct. There are many reasons through our campaign that I've come across for people using that type of payment method. Everybody has their own reasons. Some people pay themselves annually, for example. Yes, there are loads of reasons why, but that is the crux of the matter. So we've got the option of furloughing and letting our business dwindle, and our competitors who are operating in this time steal the march on us, and our business kind of grind to a halt whilst earning very little. Or we've got, on the other flip side, earn absolutely nothing during this period. So 0 household income, 0 business income in my personal case and many others, and try and pivot, or, there are lots of things we could try to do to bring in some money, but for us, actually, for our business, they're not practical, they're not realistic. There are no plan B or plan Cs.
For people who sell and install shutters, you can't suddenly start flogging pumpkins or something like that. It's just...
I definitely could, but my pumpkin knowledge is quite low, I've got to tell you. So
quite limited. How long had the business been up and running?
So for us, 3 years of accounts with Companies House. So this is the beginning of our 4th year. Going great guns. Started with just my husband doing everything as most small limited companies start, every company in the UK started with one person, mainly in their garage or shed or kitchen table is a common one. That's how Dyson started, or you can find many a great British brand that started a one-man band. But for us, in our fourth year now, we're 4 people. So we're growing and
So paying tax, paying VAT, paying wages, creating jobs, precisely the sort of people...
National insurance, you name it, we pay it. Yeah, absolutely.
Precisely the sort of people who traditionally and historically would perhaps have felt quite confident that a Conservative government would look out for their interests. And I'm not making a political point, because they have looked out for pretty much everybody else's interests, but as it stands, not yours. 2 more questions, Gina Broadhurst. The first is, do you understand why this crack through which you've slipped exists? I suspect you don't, but I'd want to hear your answer as well. And then the most obvious question of all, what do you want to see? What do you want to hear from the Chancellor?
So there are a few cracks that we've fallen down. We can't get a small business grant because we don't have premises. And many of our supporters don't have premises. We did a piece of research of over 1,600 people, a really robust study. And I mean, there is a really high proportion of our fellow campaigners who fall into that bracket too. So really the only option for us is things like deferring our VAT or taking out a loan. And if I'm honest, I think it seems a crazy decision to borrow large sums of money when you don't have a crystal ball, you can't see when this is going to end, you can't provide a cash flow forecast and have no income. I don't know many bank managers that would normally lend me money in those circumstances. So I don't feel debt is the answer for me. So we've got furlough our staff, and that's kind of it. Why the government has allowed the cracks to form is an excellent question, James, that I
awaiting an answer.
I wish I could answer. I've heard talk of start-up funds for new businesses when the economy is booming, when the economy is rising from the ashes of COVID-19, with an aim to it being booming again.
But what's the point of that when you're going to have to go under first to take advantage of an attempt at starting again then?
Yeah, it's our blood, sweat and tears. We have worked tirelessly, put everything on the line, worked from co-working spaces, and every type of industry is affected, really high levels in the creative industry, the building, plumbers, hairdressers, everybody is affected by this. And we took the risk when times were good, with the hope that when times are bad, we would be given a lifeline. We just really want a fighting chance to save our businesses.
What would that look
like?
Yes.
So to keep the business alive immediately now, for the business, furloughed owners should be allowed to operate their businesses. So the distinction there is the owner rather than the employee. Mm-hmm. Business grant funds need to come to all of the small businesses in the country. Our only motivation here is to keep our business alive and keep employing. There are millions of people employed by small businesses in the UK. Millions. I mean, the knock-on effect of leaving us now is catastrophic, in my opinion. And then finally, we need something for ourselves as individuals. So our personal income is taking a hit. It isn't just the business as the employer. It's us as citizens, human beings. So the self-employed scheme that has been created could be extended to encompass us and allow us, a similar level of income that others.
So I mean, these are plausible suggestions and taking their lead from things that are already in place and simply really calling for an extension of them into where you are. We're out of time. Before you go, do you want to tell people what the shutter company is called? If, please, God, you're still up and running when all this is over, they can possibly find out a little bit more about what you do. Go on then.
Yeah, so we're called Just Shutters, and I'm Just Shutters Surrey. So please come and see me.
Indeed, and the Forgotten Limited campaign, if the hashtag Forgotten Limited is all over social media, there's a big Facebook page and a properly run grassroots campaign that is acting on behalf of small businesses up and down the country.
Yes, indeed. We're just asking for parity and asking not to be forgotten.
A fair crack of the whip. Gina Broadhurst, many thanks indeed from, as you heard, just Shutters in Surrey, but more pertinently for our purposes this morning, also from Forgotten Limited. Some interesting stuff here.